If you're in that satisfying cycle of just one more dungeon, dropping loot and crafting builds as if it were a laboratory experiment, then you understand how addictive Diablo 4 is. But what about when you get that itch to switch things up without losing the core experience? That punchy combat, the sense of constant progress, the screen exploding with enemies and numbers, and most importantly, the game pulling you back with just one more run. Today, I've picked out 10 new games that every Diablo 4 fan needs to have on their radar. There are options for those who love endgame and optimization, for those who dig a darker, hardcore vibe, and also for those who want a faster, more chaotic ARPG with different takes on loot and skills. So, get your wish list ready because some of these have everything it takes to become your next, I just lost 200 hours without noticing. I'm Mary, and let's get into the list. If you enjoyed Diablo 4 for the loop of enter, explode mobs, get loot, and come out stronger, Crystalfall is that ARPG that makes you want to test it just for 20 minutes, and before you know it, it's already dawn. It presents itself as a hack and slash in a post-apocalyptic steampunk world powered by crystal shards, with a heavy focus on builds and repeating dungeons in search of better items. What stands out most here is how the game tries to hook you through the character building process. It features an extensive talent tree, passives to deepen your playstyle, and a very direct approach to synergy between abilities and equipment. The unique twist is the idea of lootable skills, with rarities, and even skill trees that can be procedurally generated, giving each character a unique run feel when the game offers you different paths. For those coming from Diablo 4, the familiar part is the kill, loot, craft, and build tweak loop. The part that might surprise you is how much Crystalfall seems to embrace replayability through dungeons that randomize with every visit and an endgame described as infinite. In other words, it's the kind of game that gives you a practical reason to come back, even if it's just to test one more variation of that skill that dropped with a better roll. The setting also helps it stand out. Instead of classic Gothic, it goes for a grittier steampunk vibe, with a world devastated by an asteroid and a survival and chaos feel, full of mutant creatures and mechanical enemies. The premise of you being a convict thrown into dungeons by a dominant organization already creates a simple but efficient narrative push. You're not there to be the chosen hero, you're there to take hits and evolve by force. Crystalfall clearly wants to be a build theory playground, one where the fun isn't just dropping a legendary, it's realizing that 2 passives plus 1 looted skill plus a specific item turned you into a room-clearing machine. If your favorite part of Diablo 4 is when the character finally clicks and everything starts melting on the screen, this game promises exactly that kind of pleasure, just with a steampunk identity and a very aggressive focus on customization and smart content repetition. Blightstone is a turn-based, tactical RPG with a roguelite-roguelike structure, and its big differentiator is that the combat is grid-free, featuring free movement with a heavy emphasis on positioning and reading the terrain. In practice, this completely changes the feel. Instead of just calculating range on a board, you think about angles, cover, line of sight, and how to fit your team into the space. Almost like a dirty brawl in a cramped ruin where one wrong step costs you dearly. And then comes the part I think will hit home for those who love Diablo's sense of progression. The game revolves around protecting or escorting a crystal and advancing through a dying world. And every run, including the ones that go wrong, leaves marks and feeds your progression. This idea that the game remembers your failure adds a very specific seasoning of obsession. You don't feel like you wasted time dying, you feel like you cleared the way for the next plan to succeed. In combat, the game seems to reward creativity and fair punishment because the environments actually matter. You can use cover, deal with hazards, and explore elemental interactions in the environment, like water helping to amplify lightning, areas that can catch fire, etc. It's the kind of system that makes you look at a battle and think, okay, how do I turn this place into a trap instead of just repeating the strongest combo? And to round out the buildcraft package that every ARPG fan respects, you assemble a group with classes like Brawler, Hunter, Arcanist, Druid, and Priest. And the fun lies in how these roles combine in a run, where resources and decisions matter. Blightstone enters early access on PC, Steam, on January 20th, 2026, so it's the perfect time to add it to your list and watch it grow, especially if you enjoy seeing a promising game become more robust over time.
Are they hiding from my eyes at dawn? Fading from view, they disappear. I am blinded by the dark and all alone.
The Lord of Hatred expansion is more than mandatory if you loved Diablo 4. It is the continuation with a new campaign, new classes, and a real push for the endgame, not just more of the same. Blizzard itself positions the expansion as a final confrontation against Mephisto, and a new chapter that broadly expands the base game. The main hook, for me, is that it seems to target exactly what keeps Diablo fans hooked: the progression loop and the feeling that there's always a next layer of power to unlock. The official page speaks of a broad overhaul of hero progression, with major changes to the skill tree, including new variations for each class, and an increase in the level cap, meaning it's not just extra content, it's a tweak to the build's engine. In the story, the focus is on Mephisto, with corruption spreading and the campaign taking you to Skovos, described as Sacred Islands, while Nireli tries to contain the prime evil of hatred. This is the kind of arc I enjoy because it takes the narrative away from distant omen and throws the player into the center of the chaos, with that feeling of sanctuary becoming more suffocating with every step. In the post-campaign, what catches my attention most is the promise of a more customizable endgame with more risk-reward. Blizzard mentions war plans for you to set up your own progression by choosing activities and applying modifiers to seek better rewards. Along with that, a loot filter is also mentioned, which is one of those things that, once added to an ARPG, changes the comfort of playing and the urge to farm for hours.
Fear not, child, for hell is no longer coming. Hell is already here.
If you liked Diablo 4 for the massacre, loot, and build loop, Gods, Death, and Reapers is the kind of game you want to put on your must-watch list, but with a very different flavor. Here, the heart of the game is the idea of extracting alive, because dying isn't just back to the checkpoint, it means losing what you were carrying. Its pitch is already strong, an extraction ARPG, a mix of extraction and ARPG, set in a brutal afterlife where mythology is real and the gods have disappeared or died, and you become an agent of death itself to try and restore balance to shattered realms. The coolest part is that the game starts drawing from Norse mythology, so you can expect a Midgard vibe and creatures that are much more gritty and dark than the standard pretty heroic fantasy. In practice, the loop that resembles Diablo 4, clearing, dropping, improving gear, testing playstyles, comes with a layer of constant tension. Every run is a matter of, I'll go as far as I can, grab as much as possible, and get out alive, because extraction is part of the objective, not just a detail. The game also leans into PvP/VE, so besides the enemies on the map, there's the human factor messing everything up. Sometimes you escape by a hair, other times you run into someone at the worst possible moment. Between incursions, you have the Sanctuary, which is your hidden base, a place to prepare your loadout, organize loot, and expand gradually, very much in that safe interval style that makes the next dive more planned or more greedy. This speaks volumes to those who like Diablo 4 specifically for the feeling of my character is getting stronger because I'm building a plan, not just because I leveled up. The detail that grabs me most is that they already openly speak of more than one way to play beyond extraction. There's a promise of a safe single-player campaign and also co-op PvE missions for those who want the combat and loot without the constant stress of PvP. And since the project is still in alpha, with closed playtests happening and evolution guided by community feedback, it gives you that sense of now is the time to follow along, especially since the Steam release is listed as 2026 and the game is described as free to play.
Rise, Reaper. Prepare yourself. Your initiation begins now. The realms, their gods slain, are fraught with danger. For you, of course. Loot as you please. Strip these dying realms bare. The denizens of this realm have not taken kindly to their god's demise. They struggle in vain, gripping onto what remains, unaware that their time has already passed. I care not what you do to each other, so long as you return with your and my mission accomplished. You are Legion, an instrument of a larger plan to rebuild my domain. Your sanctuary will become a new afterlife. What we build now will restore the balance, restore order, my order.
Nioh 3 is the new dark fantasy action RPG from Team Ninja, and it arrives promising a tense, open field, threatening villages, and brutal yokai around every corner. The difference is that while Diablo 4 puts you in grind hordes and optimize build mode, Nioh 3 pulls you into combat that feels more like a survival fight, where every mistake is costly and every hit provides absurd satisfaction. The game works with ki, stamina, management, and encourages playing with a cool head because the rhythm of combat relies heavily on positioning, timing, and action choices. When it gives you tools like a last-second deflect to open up a counterattack, you can feel that the game wants you to learn the hard way, but rewards you with style. The point that sold me most is the idea of fluidly switching between two combat styles in the middle of a fight, samurai and ninja. The samurai maintains the series' more classic feel, with disciplined weapon mastery and new features like systems that strengthen techniques as you refine their use, like an arts proficiency. Meanwhile, the ninja is pure malice, more mobility, dodges, aerial actions, and deception tricks like mist, which leaves a clone to confuse the enemy and create space for quick punishments. And the setting isn't just serving as a corridor between fights. Nioh 3 openly speaks of exploration in an open field, with areas much wider than previous entries. This means traversing villages devastated by yokai, facing vertical climbs, discovering secrets, and stumbling upon specific challenges like the Trials of the Crucible, which seem to be arenas designed to test your consistency and adaptation. In the middle of all this, there's still the sinister presence of the Umbrasyl, giving it that constant horror seasoning. SacriFire is an old-school RPG at its soul, but with enough modern ideas to hook those coming from Diablo 4, wanting more dark atmosphere, more build obsession, and that sense of a dangerous journey. It is in development by Pixelated Milk, and stands out for mixing detailed pixel art with visual depth that resembles 2.5D in various scenarios. What draws the most attention, and what I think can addict a Diablo 4 fan just as much as a good endgame, is the hybrid combat. It mixes real-time with an almost tactical logic, where time mainly advances when you move or act. This totally changes the feel of the confrontation, because it's not just about button mashing. You can read the danger, reposition, and make better decisions, as if the game gives you an extra half second to be smart, and still punishes you if you slip up. In the story, you play as Ezekiel Ridden, linked to the Church of Sheol in an underground city called Antioch that lives under constant threat and tension. The game leans heavily into themes of faith and doubt, with a vibe of religion as power and as risk, providing that dark and serious tone many people look for when they enjoy the mood of Diablo. While exploring, SacriFire promises handcrafted dungeons with a big focus on platformer exploration, movement, obstacles, and puzzles, instead of just walking and fighting. There's also a dynamic of switching between realities or planes, Antioch and a spiritual realm called Erebus, to solve puzzles and unlock paths, which is the kind of idea that makes the world feel more mysterious and less decorative. The Blood of Dawnwalker is the kind of RPG that I look at and immediately think, okay, a Diablo 4 fan will feel right at home with the atmosphere, but they'll stay for the weight of the narrative and choices with real consequences. It's a single-player, dark fantasy action RPG in an open world, the publisher describes it as AAA, built on Unreal Engine 5 and scheduled for a 2026 release on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. The premise is delicious for anyone who likes a world in ruins. 14th century Europe, wars raging, the Black Death decimating everyone, and it's exactly through this weakness that vampires step out of the shadows and take power. The protagonist is Cohen, transformed into a Dawnwalker, caught in a tragic threshold, human during the day and vampire at night, with all the moral crisis that brings. And here's the kicker that excites me most. The game promises two very different gameplay cycles between day and night, with distinct abilities and possibilities. And this even changes how you approach objectives and discover secrets. Furthermore, it emphasizes that every action, and even inaction, matters because there is time pressure linked to Cohen's family situation. So you can't be the perfect hero who solves everything. You choose priorities and deal with the weight of them. If Diablo 4 hooked you on that feeling that the world is hostile and you're just one more person trying to survive, Dawnwalker seems to take that same feeling and turn it into a more intimate and personal dark fantasy. The idea of having to decide between fighting for your humanity or embracing cursed powers to do what is necessary is the kind of dilemma that adds flavor to the main quest and leaves every choice feeling like a scar. If the promise of a story-focused open world holds up, it could be one of those games where you finish thinking about your decisions for days, the same way people ruminate over builds and seasons in Diablo, but here, ruminating over guilt and consequence. Menace is a turn-based strategy game that, even though it's very different from Diablo 4 in style, will hook you if you enjoy the feeling of constant risk and having to make decisions under pressure. It mixes elements of Warhammer 40k and XCOM, meaning you command a group, you need to plan every move, and the game has no mercy in showing you when you've messed up badly, something that recalls the cruelty of certain Diablo bosses, except here the boss is the map itself. The sense of danger is so present that instead of loot and builds, Menace gives you the pleasure of crafting tactics and seeing how every choice can change everything. If in Diablo 4 you feel powerful by accumulating items and skills, in Menace you feel smart by managing to escape impossible situations or by discovering an enemy's weakness. And what caught my attention most is that even being turn-based, Menace manages to maintain a pace that doesn't get tiring because every decision matters and the game forces you to think twice before advancing. It's as if each session were a loop of Diablo 4, just with less focus on character progression and more on strategy and adaptation. If you like the adrenaline of facing danger in Diablo 4, Menace offers a different kind of tension, but one that is equally addictive. Here, the enemy isn't just stronger, they are smarter, and every victory is the result of patience and tactics, not just gear.
But I don't need to see, so just tell me where to go. Even though all my light has been fading, and I won't need to be there to face the unknown. But tonight I've been blinded by the dark. Without fear, I will reach for new
Code Vein 2 is the kind of game that, if you enjoyed the dark atmosphere and build focus of Diablo 4, deserves to enter your watch list immediately. It continues the anime Souls-like formula of the first one, but with a larger scope, more freedom of exploration, and a very strong focus on character customization and vampire power fantasies. The point is, here you trade isometric loot for a more technical third-person action RPG, but without losing that feeling of always adjusting your build to crush increasingly absurd monsters. The core is still a Souls-like: light attack, heavy attack, dodge, block, and that combat rhythm that rewards those who learn enemy patterns, but Code Vein 2 speeds things up a bit more and makes everything more stylish. There's a larger array of weapons, including dual blades and new variations, more fluid combos, and a skill system that encourages you to set up very distinct setups, like a more aggressive melee character, or something more focused on magic and support. For those coming from Diablo 4, it's almost like taking your favorite build and moving the camera in close, feeling every dodge personally. What really differentiates Code Vein 2 is how it handles blood and special abilities. You drain blood from enemies, Ichor, to fuel powerful skills linked to Forme, which you equip to weapons and activate with button combinations, creating a range of strikes, spells, and supports that completely transform your combat approach. Instead of just swapping an item for a better number, you'll be fine-tuning synergies between weapon, forma, blood code, and even your partner, making the build feel like this is my character, not a generic archetype. Regarding the world and structure, the game moves away from the more corridor feel of the first one and heads into wider areas, with distinct dungeons connected by a time travel system. You explore past and present versions of the same places to change what happens in the future. This not only yields interesting puzzles and shortcuts, but also reinforces the narrative of trying to rewrite the fate of specific revenants, impacting the story much more directly than a traditional ARPG usually does. And if in Diablo 4 you enjoy playing in a group or with company, the partner system comes in strong here, with AI-controlled companions who have their own skills, can save you, buff you, and even be assimilated to boost your stats and temporarily unlock new moves. Code Vein 2 focuses entirely on single player, but it does so by giving you a sense of party and build synergy that recalls coordinating roles in a Diablo group, just compressed into you plus your partner. Lords of the Fallen 2 is the game that anyone who loved Diablo 4 for its heavy atmosphere and the feeling of facing chaos needs to have on their radar, because it takes everything that worked in the 2023 Souls-like and multiplies the brutality. Release confirmed for 2026 on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC via Epic Games Store, built in Unreal Engine 5 and with a clear promise to be darker, more demanding, and more visceral than anything Hexworks has ever done. The great gimmick that continues from the first game is the system of two completely explorable parallel worlds, the world of the living and the Umbral, the realm of the dead. Except now, 100 years after the events of the first Lords of the Fallen, the Umbral has grown, spread, and is more sinister than ever, with the barrier between realms practically destroyed. This creates that imminent apocalypse atmosphere that Diablo 4 fans know well. Only here, you aren't hunting loot. You're trying to survive in a world where even the gods have hidden in fear. The combat has evolved to be the most responsive and strategic in the franchise, with brutal executions, a dismemberment system, and expanded gore that gives every hit real weight. Hexworks also confirmed 3 already revealed bosses: the Heartroot Warden, covered in metal, Koidrith, who attacks through runic mirrors, and the colossal dragon Liang Gao, the Soaring Storm. If in Diablo 4 you enjoy the feeling of facing epic bosses and sensing the danger, here is the same pleasure, just in third person and with dodge timing that defines life or death. One of the most interesting changes for those who like playing with others is the shared progression in full co-op, from the start to the end of the campaign. They also confirmed optional PvP and customizable game modifiers, which opens up space to vary the experience and increase the challenge as you master the system. And if you haven't played the first one yet, Don't worry, Lords of the Fallen 2 is a standalone sequel, so you can jump straight in without needing to know the previous story. With over 2 million copies sold and 5.5 million players in the first one, the foundation is set, but the promise here is clear. Take everything people loved and fix what they criticized, and take it to an even more threatening and complete place. For Diablo 4 fans who want the same dark atmosphere but with technical combat and an interconnected Souls-like world, this is practically a must-play for 2026.
Our only hope.